Where do you think the left is at its best and at its worst at the moment?
I think the left is at its best when when the people within the left remember that we are trying to improve people's lives. That it's not about appealing to one activist group or another, or one race or another. When we realize and remember that what kind of connects everyone on the left is that we want to lift people up. We want a world where we have equal opportunities for people to thrive. Like that is what appeals to me when it comes to left-wing policies. When it comes to economic policies, I'm a big proponent of universal economic policies that anyone could benefit from. I think the left has kind of moved away from that. The Democratic Party certainly likes to lean into the identity politics more than the economic politics. It's unfortunate that, with the Biden administration, I actually think that he did do a few good things when it comes to some of his economic policies. I like Lena Khan, who's the head of the Federal Trade Commission. She's been doing a great job preventing monopolies or breaking up companies to ensure that consumers have more options. So there's some good stuff happening as well. And I do want to applaud Biden for that. But Biden also did things that I think were not so great. Certainly some foreign policy decisions and certain reversals of Trump era immigration policies, which at the time I didn't give Trump credit for because he wasn't really applauded for it. And I didn't realize that, the Remain in Mexico policy was actually very successful. And Biden reversing it did lead to the crisis at the border that ended up being a political liability that backed him up into a corner. And suddenly he's hitting up Republicans in the Senate, asking them to write legislation that Republicans would like. So there are some flaws on the left for sure. And I think it's important to be real about those flaws. I think it's also important to be real about what we're getting wrong about the other side of the political aisle.
What has been the response from the left since you started talking about this and came out as unaligned? I love the fact that you had to talk about your announcement, I now identify as being unaligned.
It's been mixed. So of course there have been people who I don't even know if they're really offended by it, because the people who seem to be most offended by it are making content out of it. It's a great way of just easy content to make some money. But those people are particularly vicious, and it's fine. I don't care. Like, they could be as vicious as they want. That's not going to persuade me to go in a direction that I'm uncomfortable with. But there have been a lot of former TYT viewers who stopped watching us after Trump got elected because they felt that we were going too far and that we weren't being fair. And I really love hearing from those people, because they'll tell me things like, hey, we were paid members for X number of years, and we loved your reporting. It was great. It was awesome. It was funny. It was fair. And then you just went a little too overboard with the, Trump era, too much of the, trashing America, focusing on identity politics and stuff like that. And so they just kind of stopped watching, but now they're kind of coming back, and they identify as Democrats. They're on the left. It's just that they are a little more grounded in reality and don't like the hyperbole that I think I personally fell victim to.
It is strange to me to see how seductive that seems to be to the left. Both sides of the aisle are fighting to become the people in charge of this country. But if you hate this country, if it's awful and terrible and everything needs to be burned down all the time, it's like, well, why? Why are you doing that? That's not a very hopeful vision for the future. It doesn't fill me with an awful lot of blue sky thinking and gumption for what's going to come.
Well, I started thinking about my own life and how that mindset was actually having a real world impact on my life in terms of just this defeatist attitude, feeling as though I don't have all these opportunities that people used to have in this country. And look, some things have devolved in this country. That's certainly true. However, there is a reason why so many people from all around the world are trying to come in to the United States. This is a land of opportunity, even still. And I want to find ways to empower people to get after it, to go for their dreams, to not have a defeatist attitude or mentality. I don't want to infantilize people. I think people regardless of their race, regardless of where they come from, have the capacity to do amazing things. And what I am just disgusted by right now with one faction on the left, it's not everyone on the left, but it is a faction. They are very successful themselves. They've gone to wonderful universities. They've gotten a great education. They have lucrative careers. But their lucrative career really hinges on spreading this message that there are no opportunities left in America. Okay, everything is all of our systems are set up in a way to discriminate against certain groups of people. They're never going to be able to make it unless we burn the system down. And what that does is it plants a seed in people's heads, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I don't want to feed into that. I want to find ways to empower people while also understanding, hey, there are some systemic flaws that maybe we can reform and make better.
Yeah, is this strange denial of anyone who wants to improve their lives as like you are already fine as you are, and the only problems that you're going to face are the ones that are from out there. And there's this odd centralizing of yourself in the discussion about other groups and minorities, this sort of white savior complex that seems to come through an awful lot. And I don't know, it's not even thinly veiled. It is just the like soft bigotry of low expectations. Like, poor minorities, don't worry, I will come and save you. It's like, get the fuck out of the way. It's got nothing to do with you here. So yeah, I know exactly the dynamic you're talking about.
I mean, I think that the best way to help people is to empower them, right? So I always give this example because I care about education so much, and not to center myself too much, but when I started elementary school, I didn't speak a word of English. I only knew Armenian because that's what was spoken in our household. And I just remember feeling so much shame when I entered kindergarten because I had to take like a little test to see, where I stood with language, with, math, things like that. And I don't know, I just felt a lot of shame. But I also remember that the school I went to had, an extra curriculum attached for English as a second language speakers, right? And so they went out of their way to provide additional coursework or course material to catch me up with my fellow classmates. And I feel like if we see students falling behind, what can we do to help them catch up, right? If we see that there is a disparity among Black and white students in AP classes or honors classes, okay, what can we do? What kind of additional help can we provide for the students who aren't making it to the honors programs so they can get there? Instead, the policies now in certain progressive cities across the country is to
get
just
rid of the
do
honors
away. Do away with the honors program. I don't agree with that at all. When I was in 5th grade, my teacher, and she was the most pivotal educator in my life, her name was Maggie Robson. She was from England. She was a total hard ass. Okay. She was so hard on the students. But I thrived in that kind of environment. She had a huge sign in the front of the class that said, I can and I will. And she had no patience for self-pity, zero. And at that time in my life, I was a very sensitive kid. I reveled in self-pity, and she just wasn't having any of it. And she taught me to just have a stronger sense of self-esteem, confidence, and this idea that if I really put my mind to it, I can do what I want to do. And I want to instill that in people rather than instill defeatism in people's minds.
It's so much more hopeful, right? As a kid who maybe doesn't have that much self-belief, or a person that's down on their luck, you want sympathy in as much as you want somebody else to see that things are hard, but you want that in service of you becoming better, not in service of them getting offended on your behalf and saying, don't worry, I'll step in and do this thing.